Hey guys, Vincent here, and in this video I wanted to talk about fear of flying because one of the things that terrifies me most is flying, and I'm really not a fan of it. Every time I'm about to get on a plane, or the door's about to close, or we're in the air and there's turbulence, or we're taking off, or we're about to land, it can be really stressful and nerve-wracking for me. And I have been reading a book that has given me some really helpful things that I'd like to share with people. And I've also found some own things on my own that have really helped me cope and manage with some of the stress that's involved with this process that I'd like to share with you guys if people are interested. And so before I get into, exactly why or what the solutions are, it does help a lot to understand why is flying so stressful and scary to people. And not everyone is as afraid of flying or as afraid of flying as I am or some other people are. But the book I was reading, it's called Soar. It's a really good book, Soar. Highly recommend getting it on Amazon if you would like. I'm not paid by the author, unfortunately, but whatever. But basically, the reason why flying is as scary as it is for grown adults like you and me is that we lose our most fundamental, basic coping mechanism in life that we've had most of the time we've ever been alive, which is when you're on the ground and you feel scared or you are uncomfortable, you can walk away. You are on the ground with your feet flat on the floor. And if you don't like the way someone's talking to you, or if you don't like what that dark alley looks like, you can just walk away, you can run, you can physically move yourself somewhere else to feel comfortable. And so the issue with flying is that when people are on these planes and they're in these economy cheapo seats and you're shoved into these aisles and you feel like an animal a lot of the times, um, it's just so, even though I don't really get claustrophobic on elevators, like just being in these things where you have literally no room at all and everything's just packed in there can get very uh, stress inducing. And so when you have people like me who like to intellectualize things and explain things, like when you hear a sound, what is the first thought in your head when you hear a sound? It is, what caused that sound? What is it? If you're sleeping at home at night, you're going to get out of bed and you're going to check around or start hiding because you're really nervous, and your brain feels this huge drive to explain what is this noise. Or if you felt something shake in your house, you're going to try to explain what is this shake. And so the issue that people come across when they're flying is while you are flying, you are being exposed to all these noises and vibrations and forces and, G forces that you've never felt before. Or, it's just very inexplicable. Like turbulence is very hard to avoid, and it will happen. And, you just can't explain why all of a sudden the plane's shaking and everyone's, moving around. And, your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex, the thing that tries to intellectualize, and that is your cognitive part of your brain, is trying to say, well, why did the plane just shift a little to the left, and why did this engine just start making this weird sound, and it's just like it can't keep up with all the noises, and it becomes this extremely stressful environment for everybody. And so the solution to these problems that people face when they're flying is to come up with something that is automatic and unconscious. And that is a very difficult thing to beat into your head, because the conscious layer of your brain is the thing that is trying to explain all this stuff. But if it can't get to that level where you're trying to explain everything, then you will be able to be a lot more comfortable when you are flying. I know statistically you'll get beat over the head by people telling you that flying is the safest form of transportation, but it just doesn't matter. You don't care. I don't care. It's still so stressful, and people look at me funny when I tell them I'm still really afraid of flying. And so, what the author of the SOAR book talks about is how you have these two systems called the social engagement system and the internal replica system, the SES and the IRS. And the SES is this subconscious part of your brain that handles how you deem whether or not someone or a situation is trustworthy. Like, can you be comfortable in this situation? And the IRS, the internal replica system, is kind of this subconscious memory that you have when you see a doctor in a white lab coat and they're wearing a suit and tie and they have a clean shaven face and they're smiling. It strikes your IRS as someone who is very trustworthy, and so you're gonna think that whatever they say has a high degree of credence. If they tell you that you should take this pill and it'll make you feel better, you're going to believe what they tell you because your SES is comforted by your IRS telling it that this strikes me as someone who I can trust because, this doctor reminds me of someone in the past who was someone who was also very well dressed and I trusted. So, um, there's a lot of stuff going on in your unconscious or your subconscious that you have to pay attention to here. And so, flying is really tough because basically this subconscious layer of your brain that it's really hard to like think about. That is the part that's just letting everything go through and up into your consciousness layer. And so that is the reason why people start getting these panic attacks where they feel like, oh my God, I just felt the plane jolt to the left or to the right. And I'm really uncomfortable and I really just want to get out of here, but I can't get out of here. And then there's another jolt. And then, your brain again tries to say, like, well, what was that jolt? And you're just go into this snowball effect or a positive feedback loop of stress. And so, how do you break out of that? How do you start subconsciously and automatically processing and not letting these things get to your conscious layer? And so the way you do this, and I'm sorry it took so long in this video to get here, but I wanted you guys to follow the logic here, is that you basically can saturate or saturate is probably the best word I can use, your conscious layer of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, the thing that actually forms the thoughts in your brain right now when you think like, I like the sky right now, or I don't like rain. Um, in your prefrontal cortex, that is where you can just find an exercise to do that will be so mentally involving or taxing or distracting that even though your SES and your IRS are letting these things come through, you're not thinking too much about them. And there's a really good analogy in the book that was used, which is to basically think of your brain as a conference room, and within this conference room, you have a ton of people. Your prefrontal cortex, your PFC, is like the meeting organizer or the chief executive of the meeting. That is the person who's calling the shots, saying like who gets to talk and who needs to shut up. And they're the one who makes the final call on whether or not you should make a decision. And then you have another character in that conference room named your amygdala, and your amygdala is the little worrier that just never shuts up, and they're always freaking out about that little jolt, and they're triggering events that release stress hormones into your body. And so basically, you have this amygdala that is constantly firing off all these stress hormones, and your prefrontal cortex, eventually, when people have panic attacks, loses the ability to maintain executive function of the brain, and that's when people just completely shut down or they can't function anymore. And that's where it gets really scary mentally. And so the first exercise that the author recommends, and I'm going to talk about what actually helped me a lot, but the first exercise that the author recommends is something called 5 4 3 2 1. And you start out by sitting very comfortably in your chair, or as comfortably as you can on those economy seats, and you just put your hands down and you focus very intently with your eyes onto a single object in front of you. It could be something like your glasses or a pen or whatever, but just put something in front of you, like the napkin you get or the peanuts they gave you or the cup of water you have. Just stare entirely at this thing in front of you, looking down at about a 45-degree angle, and keep your eyes focused on this thing. So while you're feeling all these terrible thoughts and we're gonna die and I just want to get out of here, just sit down, stare at this thing, keep staring at this thing. Do not let your eyes drift away. If your eyes drift away, move them back into focus onto this same thing, like your glasses or whatever. And what you do the 5 part is you will first name 5 things that you can see in your peripheral vision. So if you're looking at a napkin on a table, for instance, you might be able to also see the gray plastic table. You might also be able to see a TV screen. You might also be able to see your armrest. You might also be able to see the magazines. And you say, like, you name 5 things that you can see in your peripheral vision. And then after you've named 5 things you can see in your peripheral vision while still visually focused on your glasses or the napkin, you now name 5 things that you can audibly hear. And so you might say something like, you can hear these people to the left of me talking. You can hear the engine on the left that's turning back on. You can hear a beeping sound. You can hear, so just name 5 things. And, if you can't name 5 things, it's okay, but just do your best to name as many things as you can hear as possible. The whole purpose of this exercise, again, is to just give your prefrontal cortex, the cognitive, conscious part of your brain, something to do while you are, can't, you're losing control of that conference room, basically. And then the final thing you'll do on that number 5 is say 5 things that you can physically feel. And this isn't I feel scared. This is, I can feel the chair supporting me underneath me. I can feel my feet resting against the ground. I can feel my hands on the armrest. I can feel, these are the kinds of things that you would say that you can feel, physically feel, not your emotions. Do not think about your emotions. The whole point of this is to focus so hard on these things that are in your peripheral vision, that you're able to hear, that you're able to physically feel, that you're basically letting the high levels of stress hormones that have been released by your amygdala burn off, because these stress hormones have short shelf lives. But if you're in that panic attack, the concentration just keeps getting amped up and scaled up, and the levels remain high in your blood. So basically, doing this exercise will help you just be so distracted that you can no longer worry about these things. And then, the 4, 3, 2, 1 part of the exercise, and honestly, the naming is a little bit weird, but the 4 part is, so if you are still feeling so worried at 5, then go on to 4, and then say 4 things that you can, while you're still focusing on your glass or your napkin, name 4 things that you can see, 4 things that you can hear, 4 things that you can physically feel. And then once you've done all that, move on to 3 if you're still scared, 2, and then 1. And, hopefully by that point, your stress hormones will have burned off and you'll be feeling a lot more comfortable. Okay, so that's what the author recommends doing. And, I found myself kind of trying to do this when I was in the waiting area in the airport in front of the gate. And it did help a little bit. But one of the things that really helped me was just taking literally some headphones, because I'm someone who is very distracted by music, and I'm also a little bit introverted, so I don't generally like talking too much with other people if I'm trying to focus on something. But just I put on some headphones and I started playing music pretty loud, and I just let myself feel the music. And for me, it was so helpful because number one, like I don't really have to think too much. I can just let myself feel this music and sway to the beat and just relax and, tap your feet, tap your hands, and just feel the music, feel the energy, and not worry about all these things that are trying to come into your conscious brain that you're trying to worry about. Like, I remember when I was on the plane headed to Chicago, the engines just started making this really, really high pitched, weird sound that I was like, holy shit, is something going to break here? And I could definitely feel myself beginning to stress out. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to put in some headphones and I'm going to start playing music on my phone. And I just played music louder than the high pitched sound on the engine. And even though I knew it was there and I knew I should be worrying about it, if you just let yourself feel the music and relax, you can relax. And so that was super helpful. And it is, I'll say something else. About a month ago, I went to my first ever concert, and I actually kind of danced for the first time. and like it was so awesome to like feel the music and to be, you know, in the front part where they've actually got the speakers and you're right next to the musicians and the artists, and you can like feel, you can literally physically feel the vibrations off like the drums and the guitars and everything. And so um you know, I'm not good at dancing, but like it was still cool to be there and to like feel the music. And you know, just invest in some nice headphones. They don't have to be expensive, or just any headphones for that matter. And just try to like let yourself feel everything. And like the other thing is, you are literally drowning out the bad noises so that you don't have to worry about the bad noises. Because here's the sad part, which I just don't know if it's a good way to end this video, but like the thing is, when you're on that plane, and this is probably why it's stressful, is that you really can't do anything. You're just trusting the pilot, you're trusting the mechanics, you're trusting the corporation, you're trusting the engineers, you're trusting Boeing or Airbus or whoever, that they've done a good job, that this airplane is in solid condition, that your pilot's going to do a great job and not crash. You're trusting all these people. And so the thing to remind yourself at the end of the day is, as a passenger on this plane, is there anything that you can do to change what will happen on this plane ride? And the answer to that is no. And so by, for me, forcing myself to listen to music, it really helps me just, you know, put myself in place and just know that I am someone who is just here for the ride. I am not here to get swept away thinking that somehow, you know, me getting all worried and worked up about some engine sounding weird is going to really help or change anything. You know, just let yourself listen to music and, you know, do something that is so mentally engaging that you can't worry anymore. And it might be easier said than done. um, for some people, they can get in really stimulating conversations. uh, I'm trying to be a better conversationalist and let people talk and do a better job at listening to them, but that's a topic for another discussion. Anyways, so yeah, gist of this video: if you are afraid of flying like I am, or you know, if you just have a hard time with this stuff, I highly recommend just try blasting music the next time you feel scared, or try doing the exercise that's in this book about, you know, focusing so hard on things in your peripheral vision, things you can hear, things you can physically feel, that you can no longer really worry about the things you need to worry about. And so I hope this helps. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for watching.